If you think about death just enough to actually ask the question, could this be my last meal? If it was, how would I want to savor it differently? If this was my last conversation, how would I want it to go? What would I want to notice? That kind of noticing of death can actually make you psychologically a lot happier.
I'm headed to Austin, Texas for the official launch of Last Meal with Tom Nash.
There are things you can do to control your happiness. You have agency over this stuff.
I'll be cooking up an old favorite for my special guest, psychologist and host of the Happiness Lab podcast, Laurie Santos.
I think if more people believed that and knew the strategies they could use to get to a place of feeling happier, we'd have a lot less strife in the world.
Before having a live conversation at South by Southwest Austin. Welcome to the official launch of Last Meal. Food defines us, but every feast must come to an end. When facing mortality, life's big questions are served. This is Last Meal, where I prepare the dish my guest would want if it were their last. Okay, South by Southwest, how are we doing this afternoon? Can I get a little bit more energy than that, please? How are you doing this afternoon? You have energy because I don't. You might be thinking to yourself, what's this guy with hooks doing up on stage? Well, it's pretty hard to get attention these days. And marketing budgets can cost an arm and a leg. Take it from me. My name's Tom Nash, and I'm the host of the brand new YouTube series, Last Meal with Tom Nash. This series is where conversation meets food. It is the intersection of ideas, discourse, and dining. It starts from the platform of the question, if the world was ending tomorrow and you could have one last meal, what would that be? And while I encourage you all, as you're sitting here, to lament on what that food choice might be, think about the kind of conversations that this can launch. It's a platform for some of the life's most philosophical questions. Questions about our time here on this earth. How do we lead a fulfilled life? What about our legacy? What about our regrets? I'm going to play for you a 2-minute video that is a trailer for our new series, and then we're going to talk to you about our special guest for this afternoon, Dr. Laurie Santos. Would you mind rolling the trailer, please? If the world was ending tomorrow and you could have one last meal, what would it be? I've been traveling the globe asking this very question to the world's most distinguished thinkers before cooking them that very meal.
Joy.
Oh my gosh.
Astonishing.
That's beautiful.
An entree into the big questions of life.
If you could be buried with just one of your books, which one would it be?
We are fucking lucky to be alive in this moment in time.
Chemicals sloshing around somehow gives rise to what we're doing.
Quite a lot of what happens to us is probably random. We're not comfortable with acknowledging that.
Life is complicated. Anyone who comes up with a simple 12 rules for life, don't listen to them.
We have to create meaning in our lives.
The reason that we have such a massive issue with anxiety in our culture is we don't face our own mortality.
I'm somebody who has come close to death before. I know what that's like.
Everything was in Technicolor.
It's that desire to be somewhere else that is actually causing you the pain at the moment.
The past is memory and the future is imagination. You just have this moment.
Looking in the mirror, I found the person I was looking for.
Took me back, yes. I really never thought that I'm going to get emotional.
That's the beautiful thing about food. You just eat it and you feel like you're somewhere else.
It's the sense of wonder at the universe.
When do you think about these things in your life?
People need to be adventurous. Trying more things is the key to happiness.
So, what are the core ingredients to a life well lived? And what would you like as your last meal?
You really cooked this?
Yes.
You're good. Love it.
Thank you very much. So today we're launching Last Meal, and we've got a very special live on stage conversation, just like one of the episodes that you just saw in the trailer. Now, unfortunately, we're not allowed to serve food in the Austin Convention Center. And so what we decided to do is we actually met up with our special guest just a couple of days ago, And I prepared her choice of last meal and I presented it to her. And we filmed that for you as a little amuse-bouche to the conversation. So if you'd like to roll that, please. Tonight, I'm at Style Switch Barbecue in Austin, Texas, heating up some comfort food for Yale professor and happiness expert, Dr. Laurie Santos. Laurie Santos, your last meal that you have selected, if the world were ending tomorrow, is...
Oh, it's plated so perfectly. This, I'm guessing, is junior faculty lasagna?
This is junior faculty lasagna.
Oh man, it brings me right back to grad school. So I chose this dish in part because it's followed me through my life. I made this dish when I was in grad school and was super impressed by a professor, but not just any professor, junior faculty professor, which means he wasn't even tenured yet. Like right now, as a tenured faculty member, this would not be like the high status I was looking up to. But back in the day, this was like, faculty member, junior faculty, someday.
Oh, so this wasn't like you didn't have your eye on him or something, was it?
No.
Just...
He was just like, we were going to invite him over so we could have a fun conversation. We were at this beat up grad student house and we're like, oh my God, what are we going to serve? We're like, oh, lasagna. This seems impressive.
Yeah.
But what's funny is I've given students this junior faculty lasagna recipe. So it's kind of gone full circle.
Okay, right.
So it's really a recipe that makes me think about the odd passage of time and how food can connect you from one time to another. And also it's just good. It's like hearty and filling. And
it's comfort food.
It's comfort food.
Yeah.
It's comfort food. Oh, this is great. This is exactly like I remember it.
Is it?
It was awesome, yeah.
Oh, it's great.
It's a good recipe. This is why it's like, it started as this thing to kind of be impressive.
Yeah.
Only later do we realize like lasagna is maybe like not the most impressive recipe.
No,
if you
but
know
if
how
you're
to
a college
cook.
student,
It's amazing. I don't like having food as vice. I love food. It's like, it's good. But
Okay.
yeah.
Do you have a vice?
Do I have a vice? Reddit? Is Reddit?
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and give a warm South by Southwest and last meal welcome to Dr. Laurie Santos. That was good.
That was good. You realize he had to edit that in like less than 2 days, which is particularly impressive.
That's all I'm good for, really. Otherwise, there's no reason for me to be doing this show. Now, for those of you who don't know, Laurie is actually a Yale professor of psychology, but also the host of the Happiness Lab podcast, which is
Fans
a podcast
and audience. Yay!
that what's this one? Is this designed to offend me or something?
No, that was my fans enjoying the Happiness Lab podcast.
No, it was just a finger joke. That's all right. One of your episodes of the Happiness Lab podcast, which is a podcast that I listen to regularly, that you drew my attention to last year, was about death.
Yes.
And you taught me a new word, which is thanatophobia.
Yes.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
I think so. There was some debate in the podcast whether it was thanatophobia, thanatophobia, but yeah.
Yeah. And tell me about it.
So thanatophobia is our fear of death, which I think is like not a super strange phobia. I think most of us are afraid of death. I think this is part of the human condition. We humans have been afraid of death ever since we became a cognitive being that was able to think about death. Like death really freaks everyone out. But I think there are different degrees of thanatophobia, and I'm very thanatophobic.
You're deep in it.
I don't like thinking about death. I don't like doing it. When this invite for this podcast came up, I was kind of like, yeah, great. Seems awesome. Yeah.
We've definitely had people who suspected that we were going to serve them a meal and then kill them afterwards.
Well, I will say, so we had this lovely meal at a barbecue joint in Austin, and I had my rental car and I was driving back. And I had a moment of driving in Austin traffic where I was like, oh my God, have I just like manifested this? This is not the way this is supposed to go. But
That's something that I don't want as a net result of this show.
Yes.
For somebody to, even if it's not my fault,
Yeah.
for them to die after my cooking. It doesn't look good. I'm somebody who thinks about my own mortality all the time, you know that? It has nothing to do with the fact that, I did come close to death myself, and I think I was forced to ask these really salient questions early on in my life. But I think completely separate to that, I think about my own mortality like every day, to the point where I think it's unhealthy.
Well, I guess, the psychology work, it kind of depends on how much you're thinking about it and how much it affects you. Well, I guess then the question is like, do you think that helps you live a better life or a worse life? If you're just ruminating about death to the point that you can't get up in the morning, you're incredibly health anxious, every lump or whatever, or something that scares you, that's probably not great. But the research shows that if you think about death just enough to kind of actually ask the question, could this be my last meal? If it was, how would I want to savor it differently? If this was my last conversation, how would I want it to go? What would I want to notice, right? That kind of expression of death, that kind of noticing of death can actually make you psychologically a lot happier, right? It causes you to be a bit more present with things, causes you to savor a bit more. If I knew for sure that junior faculty lasagna was the last one, I wouldn't have plowed through it, I think, as quickly as we did, in the barbecue shop. I would have taken time to notice it, taken time to savor it. So this act of something being your last, the research shows, can be really powerful for you to experience it in a happier way.
So you're effectively talking about using it as a framing technique, effectively, right?
Correct. And this is, there's new school science on this sort of thing, but this is a very old school idea, right? The ancients had this idea of memento mori, right? Remember that you will die. And didn't just have this as an idea, right? They kind of brought it into their fashion and their stuff. They walked around with coins that said memento mori in order to remind themselves this. And I think what the research shows is that actually was a good idea. Just every once in a while, remembering this is finite, I could go at any moment, kind of reminds you to make the best of it. Similar to a different old school ancient phrase of carpe diem, right? Seize the day, which is followed up by because tomorrow you might die.
Yeah. Do you think in Western society now that we don't face our own mortality as much as we ought to?
Oh, for sure. And I think we've seen, enormous physical changes in this. I just read a fabulous new book by the author John Green called Everything is Tuberculosis. And he talks about the history of tuberculosis and kind of how it's going now. And he just noted that, for most of human history, there was some terrible disease that just wiped out most of your family. Right? You would just be experiencing death in your home a lot more often, right? We forget how incredibly lucky we are to live right now where, something like COVID felt like an outlier, felt like something extremely scary. That just wasn't true for most of our history as a species. And that kind of prevalence of death wasn't just something that was societal. It was literally in our homes, right? The idea of living rooms or a parlor, right? That was because these rooms also served as funeral parlors. When somebody died of consumption, their body would be there and they'd kind of leave them around and you'd sort of see it. I think now we medicalize death, which allows us to kind of leave it in the hospital, push it away, keep it quite sanitary. I think we just don't grow up with it as much as our species did before. And that means it's just not on our minds as much. I often think medicalizing death comes in the form of this idea that in some ways, if you've died, you've messed up. My father-in-law recently passed away, and so death has been on my mind and my family's mind a lot. And there was just a lot of discourse of he lost the fight or he didn't make it. And you're no, this is it's coming for all of us. This isn't a lost fight. This is an inevitable thing that's going to happen. But I think we sort of think it's a weakness or something we want to avoid. And so I think we haven't had it around us as much as we have historically. And that might be having a negative effect on the way we kind of use death to live a good life now.
What do you think about the interaction between the kind of afterlives we do or don't believe in and how that interacts with our ability to take this moment seriously and to appreciate our lives in the moment?
Yeah, I think, psychologically, it's much easier to face your own death if it's a blip in your existence, right? You're going to die on this world, but then you're going to go on to this other world. And many conceptions of the afterlife, not all of them, many conceptions are it's awesome, right? We don't even know what's there, but it's going to be great, right? Kind of paradise, not on earth, but somewhere else. Obviously, that makes it much easier, right? Or even sort of narratives about reincarnation, right? For example, you're going to go on to something else. And in some ways, it's a kind of growth mindset move. And what you achieve here, if you do good here, you get this benefit in the next world. I think it's much scarier if you don't subscribe to those views of an afterlife. I'm kind of more of a agnostic and atheist. I kind of think once you go, you go. That's harder, right? Because it suggests that once you go, you go. That this was it. This existence that I love so much, it's not going to be around forever. Already, you see my heart, I'm shaking. That sucks. Doesn't that suck?
Okay, so I have exactly the same thing as you, but here's my take on it that I've been struggling with, right? I know that cognitively, it doesn't make sense for me to fear death as an atheist because I lack the ability to fear missing out on that which I'll miss out on. Mm-hmm. Because I won't exist to miss out on it.
Yes.
nonetheless,
It freaks
I still
you
have
out.
fear
Yeah,
of missing
it
out.
freaks you out.
Yeah.
Philosophers sometimes use what's meant to be a thought, like a thought situation, to get you to realize this. So like, oh, I shouldn't worry about it. And they often say, were you freaked out that you didn't exist, for example, like during the US Civil War? And the idea is like, no, you don't worry about that. So why worry about the fact that you're not going to exist in, 2030, 2 or something like that? 20, 30, 100 or something. I don't even know how you do the years up here, right? I'm trying to pick one because even like thinking like 20, 30, 100, I'm not going to be here. I'm like, oh God, it's like a million year,
Is 20, 30, 100 a year?
I don't even know. It's like, this is how I get freaked out about talking about death. I can't even do math anymore.
I'm sorry.
But the point
That's
is
what the
that,
show's about, by the way.
But the point is, I actually get a little bit freaked out that I wasn't alive for the Civil War. A little bit less, but I'm kind of like, I wasn't here. I didn't have opinions about this. I didn't exist. Like mine is.
Sorry, did you say I didn't have opinions about this?
Yeah, like I could have I wasn't like scrolling through some Reddit thread looking at what was happening in the Civil War. Like, no, I don't like the fact that I didn't exist before.
Yeah.
It's less bad that I'm not going to exist in the future, but I still have that intuition.
If you had the option to live forever, would you do it?
It's so tricky. I think yes is really the fast answer, but I get why that's such a bad answer. But I think my very fast intuitive answer is like, oh yes, definitely don't die.
I think I would.
You would too?
I think I would.
But don't you get the sense that would get boring?
Oh, of course. But how does that differ to my life now?
And I'd rather take boring than non-existence. Yeah.
That's fair enough. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you or touch on a little bit was, I know you do a lot of work with dogs. Mm-hmm. And you do a lot of work with happiness. Yeah. And for me, those two are intrinsically combined, right? I actually measure my own happiness based on how many dogs I get to pat on any day, right? And not all dogs are happy to see me, okay? For obvious reasons. Once they start to understand that these things are good for scratches, fantastic, you know what I mean? But before that, they're a little bit wary. And I wondered if there was any research into how objectively true that is and how much happier animals can make us.
Yes, and the good news is that dogs do make us happier. Phew, it's good that the research went in that direction. Yeah, right. No, but for a couple of reasons, right? One is that dogs tend to increase our social connection. One of the biggest insights from happiness science is that social connection matters for our happiness. Just being around other people, connecting with other people makes us feel good. Dogs increase our social connection in two ways. First, we feel connected with them. Right? I know people in my life who say like, I don't like humans, but I like my dog, right? So even if you're not getting social connection with other humans, you can sometimes find it with your pets, right? But dogs also increase social connection in a different way, which is that if you're walking down a street with a dog, you probably have had the experience that someone will start talking to you, or you might start talking to someone that you wouldn't have started talking to otherwise if they have a dog, right? Oh, what's their name? Where do they come? What's on? Like we just more easily connect with other people when they have a pet around them. So boom, social connection, huge for our happiness. We get that from our pets. Second thing that's huge for our happiness that we often get from our pets is moving our bodies, a little bit of exercise. This helps not only our mental health, but also our physical health. You see reduced rates of things like heart attacks and so on in individuals who have pets. And so that's a big one, not just for our physical health, but just moving your body makes you feel good. And so that's helpful. But dogs also do this other funny thing that I think is consistent with this idea of thinking about death, which is that they make us a little bit more present. If you've ever walked around with your dog in the morning, they're kind of sniffing things, they're noticing things, they're going slowly, they're not checking some Instagram feed, they're fully mindful and present. And it kind of forces you to do that too.
Absolutely.
And this seems to be one of the benefits of thinking about our own death, right? Is that we don't want to miss it. We don't want to let it fly by while we're sort of looking at our phones. We kind of get a little bit more present, so. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been walking my dog before on days that I've been frustrated, and he literally stops to smell the roses.
Yes.
And I'm like,
I don't want to tell you what's on the roses, but he's stopping to smell them. But it's not the rosy.
That's why he's smelling it. Yeah. I tried it, weren't that bad. But you did touch on something that was interesting there, which is the social connections, which we all know is like the biggest indicator of what helps us to live a fulfilled life, our subjective well-being and happiness. And you also touched on the phone. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we're now in this interconnected world where we can be more connected with everybody that we ever have in past. And yet we seem so siloed and alone. Yeah. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Not that it's your fault, just how did it happen?
Oh, it's not my fault. If I had any say in this, we'd try to fix this a little bit differently. No, I think, so the tricky thing about technology is that technology is really just a tool, right? We can use all those devices that you all are holding up in the audience right now to connect with one another. We can call a friend, we can FaceTime them. And beyond social connection, we can do all kinds of things that matter for our happiness. We could scribble in a gratitude journal. We could take a picture of what we're looking at and really mindfully be present when we take a picture. We can use our technology to boost our social connection, our happiness. But in practice, we often use our technology for just the opposite, which particularly in the case of smartphones is ironic because these things, of course, were invented so that we would probably call people and connect with one another, even including social media tools, right? Were invented to be social. They were supposed to allow us to connect. However, how often have you not talked to someone at a dinner table because you had your phone out, or not even been kind of listening because you're like holding onto your phone or trying not to check it because you're supposed to be listening, but you're sort of thinking about checking your phone and so on? How often have you not noticed the world around you, stopped like this dog to smell the roses because your eyes were glued to your phone? I think the way we interact with our technology is often stealing the things that matter for our happiness. And that's kind of sad because it's like on us. Right? We're kind of willingly giving our attention to these devices, maybe merely by bringing them around. And that's one of the scariest findings. Researchers find that just having your phone around, in some experiments, even if you're not looking at it, even if it's not on and you're not working with it, it can be stealing your attention away from the stuff that really matters. This lovely study by Elizabeth Dunn and colleagues where she puts people in a waiting room, kind of like the room that many of you might have been in South by Southwest. And she has folks either have their phones with them or their phones away. And what she measures is something very curious. She just measures the amount of smiling that happens spontaneously between the people in the room. You know, you're sitting there, you look up, smile at the person. She finds there's 30% less smiling when people have their phones around them, even if they're not using the phone, even if it's just in a bag, right? And you get why that is, right? You're just kind of not as clued in to the world around you and not as clued into the social possibilities around you, these opportunities to connect with other people that our phone in a funny way is sort of stealing away. And so the question is like, how do we fix that? And I think we can fix it on an individual level just by kind of knowing that our phone is stealing attention. You know, just recognizing that there might be an opportunity cost of being on our phone when we could be talking to someone else. Here at Southwest, you probably came because there's so many interesting people to talk to with interesting experiences and interesting stories and interesting skill sets. How often have you not walked up to a stranger and asked them about those interesting experiences and skill sets because you were like staring at your phone, right? And so I think a little awareness can maybe push our behavior in a different direction. So we can A, use our technology in a healthy way, but B, make sure it's not interfering with in real life social connection.
And I mean, any company that is behind an app that you use is incentivized to get your attention away from whatever you're doing in person, socially as well. To what extent do you think our phones are almost like a mirror into ourselves? And they kind of reflect our own desires, because obviously algorithms play on our wants and desires and everything else. So it shows us and makes us more extreme versions of what we may already think, and in order to suck us in further. And so to an extent, I mean, this is what I see happening in small doses. And I worry a little bit because what it means is that we're going to have to keep ourselves in check.
Yes.
So if we're socializing with people, it means put the phone away or something.
Yeah. One of my favorite strategies for this comes from the journalist Catherine Price. She has this lovely book called How to Break Up with Your Phone, where she argues that you don't necessarily have to break up with your phone, but you have to take it to like couples counseling to like develop a like better relationship with it. And she just has this quick acronym that she uses, WWW, which is a handy one because you're thinking about it when you're on your phone. But WWW in her case stands for what for, why now, and what else. So you find yourself with your phone in your hand, WWW, what for, why now, what else? What do you have your phone in your hand for? Like, were you checking your email? I was looking at something on the South by schedule, or did you just, there was no reason, it just wound up there, right? Why now? This is a sort of mindfulness question, right? Like, what drove you to do that? I was bored, I was feeling anxious, like, you know, maybe you had a better reason, but like, notice what draws you to your phone, and that can kind of help you know when you should use it or not. Most important question though, what else? What's the opportunity cost of being on the phone right now? Could, you know, I be talking to my husband? Could I be looking out around at the roses? Could I be interacting with a stranger, right? Like, what are you missing out on because you're on your phone right now? And that little acronym has helped me a lot, because I think the solutions where it's like, get rid of our phones, even when we think about schools, I think kind of banning phones, like it doesn't really help us. It's kind of helpful if we can ask the question, when is this actually helping me, helping my happiness, helping my presence, and when is it sort of hurting? But I think we have to notice. But you said something interesting. You said maybe our phones are reflecting our deepest seated, deepest views of the world, these things that we kind of are embarrassed by. I actually worry that our phones are more shaping those, not just our own kind of deep-seated nasty stuff, but it's shaping the way we view the nastiness of others. And this is something I worry about a lot, right? The algorithms that many apps use to kind of get eyeballs on our phones do so by making things seem really extreme, really emotional. And they pick up on emotions that like best get our eyeballs on things, which are emotions like outrage or anger or so on. That means that people who want our eyes on phones are incentivized to make us see stuff that is outrageous, see stuff that is frustrating or angering. And you just think about the content that we see on Instagram or on social media or X or Twitter, or whatever it is these days. Like, it's going to be the content that draws your eyeballs there in the most outraged way. And that algorithm might not actually be reflecting what's really going on in the people in the world. And it drives this thing that psychologists call false polarization. This idea that our beliefs about how polarized we are worse than how polarized we actually are. That's not to say we're not polarized, particularly here in the US. I think politically we're very polarized, but we're not as polarized as we think, because most of the views we see from somebody on the other side isn't from a real person that we've talked to in real life, usually. Often it's like the strangers we see posting things on the internet, and those just don't reflect real life. But I think the phone is shaping the extent to which we want to interact in real life, because we think, well, I can't talk to somebody on the other side because they have these really extreme 10 out of 10 views. Probably they have like 5 out of 10 views, right? But you don't end up talking in real life because these algorithms and your interactions with your phone have scared you so much that you just don't dive in.
Outside of, the technology argument, you do a lot of work into what makes people happy, but I'm interested in people's misconceptions about what will make them happy. Like, what is everybody doing the most wrong to live a good life?
Oh my gosh, so many things that we're doing wrong. Yeah. Well, I think one thing we're doing wrong is that we're engaging in behaviors that would make sense for improving our happiness if our theories of happiness were right. Right? I think none of us are trying to mess up our happiness. I think all of us are pursuing goals and behaviors that we can engage in with the idea that it would make us happier. The problem is that if our theories are wrong, those behaviors are going to be wrong too, right? So what are these mistaken theories of what makes us happy? I think a big one is money. Right? We just assume more money will make us happy. And that is true if you are living below the poverty line. That is true if you can't put a roof over your head and food on your table. Yes, more money will make you happy. But I think we generalize from that upward slope that upward slope will continue. And what the research really shows is that slope tends to level off. Some big debate in the field, if you're a nerdy psychologist like me, about when the slope levels off. But it's not where we think. It's not at like $20 million or $10 million. In US dollars right now in 2025, it's probably more around like $100,000 or something like that. Now, that's not what we think. If you're listening right now and you make an income of about 100,000 US dollars and you thought about what would happen to your happiness if I quintupled your income, you might think you would be happier. But the data seem to show probably not at all. And even if it did make you a little bit happier, it would be like a little teeny tiny
it's
bit.
Asymptotic kind of. Yeah.
Like you'd get much better kind of, bang for your happiness buck, as it were, if you just scribbled a few things you were grateful for in a gratitude journal every night, or got an extra 20 minutes of sleep, or talked to the barista at a coffee shop twice in the week when you go to the coffee shop every day, right? So if you think about the work you need to put in to get more money, you'd be better off investing in something else. So money is a big one. And then it's all the stuff that money comes with, right? Material possessions, fame, accolades at work, right? We think those things are going to be the stuff that moves the needle. And they do move the needle, just not as much as we think, not as much as what matters. We're often pursuing that stuff at an opportunity cost of the stuff that really does matter. So social connection, rest, taking care of our bodies, some physical exercise, eating healthier, and so on, sleep. Right? These are the things that really do move the needle behaviorally.
Did you see recently what Michael Sheen did?
No.
There's a TV show that he's shooting for the BBC, and just to be certain, Michael Sheen is not the Charlie Martin Sheen. Michael Sheen is the if anyone's seen Midnight in Paris, he's the really annoying guy that tells everyone what was up with Rodin, all this sort of bullshit. Michael Sheen is doing a TV show where he purchased £1 million worth of people's debt. For £100,000, because apparently that's how debt works. You can just buy other people's debt for a fraction of the cost. And then he excused it. And he didn't know anything about these people. He knows where they live and he knows what the debt was for, but he doesn't know them at all. And I don't think he will ever know them. And this is an example of, at huge scale, this being other-oriented. And, you'd mentioned speaking to the barista, how many happiness points can we get from buying someone's coffee behind us or something like that?
Hugely. In fact, one of the reasons money doesn't make us happy is we spend it in the wrong way. We tend to spend it on ourselves. But the research shows that if you spend more of your money on other people, that will wind up making you happier. One of my favorite studies is one by Mike Norton and his colleagues. They just walk up to folks on the street, hand them $20 and say, here's how you're going to spend this $20 that I just gave you. You're either going to spend it on yourself, do something nice and treat yourself, or you're going to spend this $20 on someone else. Do something that helps another person. When they call those folks later in the day and even later at the end of the week, what they find is the folks that spent the money on someone else wound up being happier than the ones that spent it on themselves. And I think if we scale that experiment up to the way we spend all of our money, what we realize is we might be spending it wrong. Here in Austin, how many of you, dropped way more money than you should have on a coffee that you just kind of banged quickly, going to one of these events, right? What if you put that $7, in to support a cause that you really cared about or help unhoused folks? Like we just spend money on ourselves, not realizing that money could go to other good causes. And so I think what's going on there is really fabulous, right? I think it also points to maybe structural changes that we might want to see, right? If you're above, we just talked about this happiness slope, that if you don't have much money, getting more money is great. But once you have a certain amount, it kind of levels off. That means that everybody who's in the leveled off category, they gave some of the money to the folks who were down here on the lower slope part. Everybody would wind up being happier, including the people who gave the money away.
So are you suggesting that we start a progressive tax system based on happiness points?
Yes. I actually think, there are some folks in the UK, Richard Laird and others, who have been arguing that economic policy should be based on kind of happiness points. We often base it on GDP because I think we have this mistaken notion that our material success and our monetary success will make us happier, but maybe we should base it on what would make us happier.
Wouldn't that mean a lot of people would self-report being really sad just to avoid tax?
It gets complicated. Look, this is no, I think
I didn't know Peter Thiel was so depressed.
Here's the thing. If we had a tax policy that obviously benefited people, imagine you pay your sales tax and something comes in and is like, here's what your state is actually going to do with that money. They're going to, give it to someone who can't buy food this week or something like that. If we saw the benefit of those effects and we had some trust that they were actually helping people, then I think we'd be in a different place.
I really like that idea, like having the relationship between where the money's going. And I think even if you instituted something like that, I loved the idea of buying X amount of debt for a fraction of the cost. So if you could actually sort of inbuilt some kind of pseudo-altruistic mechanism into your society by which people actually felt good for donating something that would otherwise be tax.
Yes. And I think, another misconception we have, I think, is this idea that happiness, all the happiness in the world and in a society is kind of fixed, right? By giving some of my money up, then I take my happiness away and I give some happiness to you. We kind of see it as a fixed pie. But I think what the research shows is that we can grow our happiness by doing nice things for other people. It's not, again, the folks who gave the money away, it wasn't just the person who, that $20 was spent on in that experiment that felt better. It was the person that spent it too. And so I think we're leaving opportunities for happiness and maybe bettering society and helping people on the table because we misunderstand what's going to make us feel good.
I want to start talking a little bit about you and your life.
Great. Are we going to go back to the thing that's going to make me heart palpitate?
No, we're not talking about death anymore. We're talking about life.
I don't believe that, but okay.
It's just about life. If you woke up on January 1st next year, and I told you that you had to repeat a year of your life as it happened, can you tell me what that year would be?
It's very hard. Oh, can I ask further questions? I'm
Sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Do I have when I go back to that year, do I have my consciousness from 2025 right now?
No.
Or do I have to repeat it?
You repeat it as it was.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's harder, right?
Of course.
Everybody's not.
I don't ask easy questions, Laurie.
Yeah. I think I would repeat. I think I have to go back to what year this is. I think I would repeat 2002 because that's the year that I first met my husband.
Oh. Tell us
and a
about
lot
it.
of cool stuff happened. Like we got together, we met at a party. I had a crush on him for a very long time. I would see him at coffee shops and eventually we talked and love, like the hearts come up and stuff like that, right? It was also the year that I first got a job at Yale and got started at Yale. Fantastic. It was a year that I walked around really thinking, because of my extreme thanatophobia, I bet I'm going to get hit by a car. Like things are going too well. Like the universe has to level out somehow.
Yeah.
And so it was just a year that I would experience again. I was young. I was like in my 20s. It would be fun to go.
Are you a believer in karma?
No.
Yeah.
But I'm a terrible thanatophobe that's going to double down on anything that could go wrong. Yeah.
How long had you been with your husband or dating your husband before you made him junior faculty lasagna?
Ooh, that is interesting. Probably not long because it was like only one of the few recipes I actually learned how to do. Yeah, probably like a year or two. Yeah, okay. Yeah, not long.
Fair enough. So it's
he
his
got
jam
it early,
too.
Yeah. He's a comfort food kind of guy, so he was into it.
Are there any habits that you used to have in your youth that you regret?
I think I'll give like a mindset habit versus a behavioral habit, right? Which is just like taking stuff too seriously. Just like being so, I regret kind of all the time I spent worrying and ruminating about stuff that just turned out okay, right? In so many different domains. We were just talking about getting together with my husband. I think that was a moment where it's like all the drama that was going on in my brain about getting together with somebody. Will I ever meet somebody? It was gone, right? It was going to work out. And so, yeah, I think that's a habit that I regret, all the rumination.
Yeah.
Thinking it was effective. And one of the things we know from the science is that rumination is not effective. One of my favorite studies to tell my students is this study by my former colleague, Susan Nolan-Huxema. She does this study where she gives college students like a particular problem. And it's like college student problem. You think it's like somebody was sitting with you at the dining hall and they're not sitting with you anymore and you think they don't like you anymore. What can you do to fix it, right? And she either has college students think about that problem and ruminate about it or just distract themselves for some period of time. And then they come back to their problem. What happens? The college students who are distracted do much better and come up with much more effective solutions for that problem than the ones that were thinking about it. We think like, if I just worry about this and ruminate about it, I'll come up with something. But we're impairing our ability to come up with something.
Yeah. I find exactly the same thing with any kind of problem solving. You need to remove yourself from the problem in order to think creatively because otherwise you're going to keep trying the same thing over and over and run into the same. Okay. It's interesting that you said that actually about obsessing over things, or you would be surprised how many people have exactly the same answer to that question, that they took everything in life too seriously when they were younger. And it was something that almost every single guest we've had on the show says.
And I'm curious about your experience because people who've been close to death in various situations, they often report that a benefit of a near-death experience or some sort of terrible like a cancer diagnosis or something like that is that they stop doing that naturally. They just realize what matters in life and that the BS doesn't matter and they ain't got time for that and they just move it on. It's one of the huge benefits. Other benefits are just kind of folks wind up getting more social after having a near-death experience and social with the people that matter, right? I'm going to prioritize time with the people that I really value, right? Also a better sense of purpose, even if that purpose is kind of tiny purpose. You notice the things that are really meaningful, so.
Yeah, you definitely don't have as much time for that which doesn't really matter after, because you realize how precious life is and the fact that everything can be taken away in a second, especially for me, having been like a 19-year-old male in Australia, like they don't die, 19-year-old. You're invincible. Turns out, not exactly. Anyway, is there an experience that you remember that you would say was worth every cent you paid for it?
Well, here's the thing about what the happiness science shows about experiences is that experiences in general wind up being more valuable than material stuff. You tend to look back on most experiences that you buy and you're like, worth it, much more so than like some material thing that you buy, a new shoe or a new tech gadget or something. This is me stalling because I should have come up with an experience beforehand. I mean, I think so many things. For me, most of the experiences I look back on were like that, or where that was worth it, even if it was expensive, would be travel experiences. Early on when I was dating my husband, we had the opportunity to go to the Galapagos. And at the time, I was still like just leaving grad school, new professor. It felt so expensive to do this, but that was honestly worth every penny. You know, I bet if I could kind of scroll in on all the memories I had in that trip and all the cool things I saw and the experiences I had, it was just like much more than like the sum total of all those like lattes that I bought over the years, and probably the same amount of money. So I think travel, like many experiences, wind up being much more worth it.
How long did you spend in the Galapagos?
We were there for 2 weeks.
That's pretty
And
good.
we were on a very small boat, which meant that we could kind of go to parts of islands that other folks didn't. And as Tom mentioned, you know, before I became a happiness expert, I studied animals a lot. And so to see animals in their natural habitat where Darwin saw them, and a cool thing about the Galapagos is that the animals are very habituated, so you can get really close and watch them. It was a dream come true.
Amazing. Sounds fantastic. What is something that you know you do differently to everyone else?
My producer, Ryan, is in the audience, and if you asked him that question, he would point out that I prefer really oaky Chardonnay to other wines, and no one should like really oaky Chardonnay. So I don't know if I'm different than everyone else, but apparently I'm different than people who have taste in wine, I think
Oh,
I'd say,
I don't mind an oaky Chardonnay.
Do people like oaky Chardonnay? Literally, one person's like raising their hand right now. So yeah.
I like oaky Chardonnay. I know it's not very fashionable right now.
It's not
But that always changes. Did you know that I think it was the world lost a huge market share in Merlot after the film Sideways came out because Paul Giamatti or whatever his character started complaining about Merlot? Actually quite like it.
But this is another thing about experiences, that they are socially constructed, right? You'll
That's
have a
true.
completely different experience. I will have a completely different experience with my oaky Chardonnay if my producer Ryan's sitting there to comment on it.
Do you believe that actually changes our objective reality?
Yeah. And in fact, there's some interesting studies to show this, right? That if you enjoy, for example, a meal with someone else, especially a pleasant meal, that meal will be tastier than if you don't with someone else. So even if you don't know that person, it doesn't have to be a friend. It can be a stranger who's in another room. And you say, here, stranger, here, you take this delicious chocolate. I'm going to take this delicious chocolate in another room. And I'm just eating it by myself, no conversation. Just that I know another person is tasting it with me winds up making it taste even more flavorful, even more delicious. That's for good events. The sad thing is you can look at bad events and you get the same emotional amplification effect. When you have a bad experience with somebody, it winds up being even worse. So be careful how much you share your bad experiences with other people. It might make you feel good, but it might be boosting the net negative energy around you.
On the topic of wine, I have this friend who, very dear friend of mine, knows nothing about wine. And a couple of years ago, I discovered this wine that I'd been keeping at my house was from 2006 or something like that. I didn't know how much it was worth. And I Googled it, and I think when I bought it, it would have been worth around $11. So now it's at least worth $8. And I thought, I might do a bit of an experiment. And so I asked him to come over, and I said, look, I've been holding on to this wine for a really long time. It's very special. Come over, get some prosciutto. I'm going to decant it. You know, we can't drink it for like half an hour. It's going to breathe. Whole 9 yards. And he had a sip of it. And I said, well, what do you think? And he said, this is the best wine I've ever had in my life. And here's the weird thing. I tried it. It was one of the best wines I'd ever had in my life. So we'd completely placeboed ourselves. I mean, he didn't know what was going on. I was doing it to him just to sort of run a bit of a test. But I bought into it as well, even knowing that it was a placebo.
That's the thing. Placebo effects often continue working, even. Yeah.
And it made me think, you know, we could be doing this a lot more than we are.
Well, I liked that companies probably are doing it a lot more than you realize.
Oh, I know they're doing it. Yeah, we could be doing it to ourselves.
Yes, that's right. And in fact, a good way to do that if you want better experiences is there's some evidence that just the name of something can make it more pleasurable. So if you're eating chocolate chip cookies, that's one thing. But if you're eating grandma's decadent chocolate chip cookies, it sounds different. I think it's one of the reasons junior faculty lasagna has stood the test of time. Just adding a word onto something. And the research shows even if it's an arbitrary word, makes you think it must be more interesting and flavorful. So I think that's why it works.
Is there a belief that you hold that most people disagree with?
Oaky Chardonnay, that doesn't count for the thing.
It's no belief.
Yeah, a belief I hold that most people disagree with. That's a tricky one. I tend to be very agreeable. I tend to I'm anti-conflict in lots of ways, in ways that I'm working on. And so my instinct is often to agree with people about stuff. And so maybe that's a way that...
Is that something that you regret being like? Or do you want to change about yourself?
No, it's a thing that well, I think it doesn't, there are some situations where you really want to have conflict, and I don't like that it's hard for me to engage with it. But overall, I'm kind of happy that I'm agreeable. It's a trait that I value about myself.
Do you think people can change?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And do you think that it operates within some sort of homeostasis, or like they can only change a little bit within a range, or do you think people can become completely new people that they want to be?
I think it depends on the trait we're talking about. But even traits that psychology and the field of psychology thought for a long time were just unchangeable, people are starting to realize you can change. One of my favorite ones is our personality characteristics. For example, if you're introvert or extrovert, this is something that, again, psychologists for a long time thought this was a trait-level description. Like you just were an introvert or an extrovert. Some lovely work coming out now that if you believe you can change, you try to engage in a little bit more different behaviors. You say if you're an introvert, you talk a little bit more, call friends more, and so on. You can actually change your personality variables around. And so I think if it can work for something like introversion and extroversion, it can really work for many traits. So there's probably some boundary conditions, but I think more is changeable than we often assume.
Last question about yourself before I bring you back to the topic of death.
Oh, I thought we were going to go back to happiness science.
Yeah, you thought so, didn't you?
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Take it easy, Happiness Lab.
No.
What legacy would you like to leave behind?
Ooh. I would like to have lots of people who I love that love me, and I would like my work to positively impact lots of people that I don't know. So I want the local, the friends, the personal, people who care, and I also want the work to be bigger too.
One of the guests that you interviewed in the podcast in question about death, I forget what her name is, I apologize, but she was describing her ultimate dying scenario. Do you have one of those?
I tried
this
to.
Is just to be
so
clear
this is,
with everyone.
Yeah, so
this is not how you die, but if you were surrounded by family, where would you be? So you've had the lasagna.
Yes, yeah.
But
I don't know. It's true.
Who's there?
I picked the junior faculty lasagna because it was a good meal, easy to make, a fun story. I feel like on the moment of death, most deaths, it's kind of heavy. I'd probably go for something a little lighter, honestly. But no, the person you're referring to is Elua Arthur, who's a death doula, which was a job that I didn't know was a thing, but makes a lot of sense. We have birth doulas for these big transformative moments when you give birth to someone, but we don't have the same kind of help when we go through death, which can maybe in some ways be a lot more scary and a lot more lonely, I think, than a birth moment. And so her job is to help people think, just like a birth doula would help you think, well, how do you want to have a birth? Do you want an epidural? All this stuff. The death doula is doing the same thing for your death. Sometimes that's because you know death is coming closer, you've had a terminal diagnosis and so on. Sometimes it's just because you're like me and you're afraid of death and you want to think about it a little bit more. But Elua has this amazing death where people were around her and she had the music chosen that she was going to play and she wanted people to kind of sing when she took her last breath and this whole thing. And the point of the podcast was I was supposed to think about this, and to be honest, I haven't thought about it. It's really scary. I think it's also really hard to predict what it's going to look like. I think that's the problem of, in some ways the medicalization of death is that for a lot of people, it might not look like what you want. you're away from your home, you're in a hospital, you're kind of given drugs to make you feel better, but that maybe don't make you as conscious or as connective as you might want to be. And so, but Ayla's point is this idea that, if you want to get closer to what you want, it might not work for everyone. Just like a birth doula, you might have some plan for your birth, and that might go badly depending on what actually happens in your birth situation. Her idea is that picking one will help you out, but I haven't gotten there yet. Do you have one?
No, I don't. But I might approach it the same way that I approach managing expectations in my life. So a trick that I like to do is if I'm staying at a hotel or an Airbnb or something like that, before I walk in, I read the worst reviews. And I prep myself to have a shit experience.
Yeah.
So then when I walk in, if it matches that, it's matched the expectation.
Yeah.
But if it's any better, I'm like, that was a bonus.
Yeah.
So what I might do is this. If I imagine the death that I want, I just have to want a really shitty death.
It's not
and
the
then
way
whatever
Ayla
happens
went,
is better than
Yeah. I mean, I think just, this is using the power of our imagination to set expectations in a way that make you feel good. And this is a powerful technique because what the research shows is that if you set your expectations too high, even if the almost best possible thing happened, you're still going to feel a little bit crappy about it. So I think setting expectations appropriately or even low might be a good strategy there.
If you could leave the world, or let's say your students, I'm going to sub out your students because I know you don't have children, as almost like a legacy. They're like your kids, right? If you had one message to leave them with on your deathbed, what would that be?
Oof. I think honestly it'd be that there are things you can do to control your happiness. You have agency over this stuff. I think if more people believed that and knew the strategies they could use to get to a place of feeling happier, we'd have a lot less strife in the world.
Fantastic. Laurie Santos, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
On Last Meal. Shake the hook as usual.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you guys for coming. We will be around. Laurie's going to be answering questions just person to person while I escape. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Make sure you scan the QR code and jump onto the YouTube. And at 5 o'clock, which should be any second now, our first episode is going to be airing on YouTube with Masih Alinejad, the Iranian journalist. So please check it out. And every Friday, we're going to have a new episode coming to YouTube. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.